أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم برضوان إلى يوم الدين. Before coming here, I had a very different idea as to how this presentation will be. So, since we have time, I want to do a little experiment of doing it slightly differently than what I had. And I'm going to borrow from when I do any dars on Quran in a halaqah or a circle, I always start with the questions first and then presentation later. So I think that's what I would like to do. Two caveats. One is that I am still getting used to the Trinidadian accent. So if I have difficulty understanding you, you should know that I have been brought here a little before to get used to it before doing this presentation. Second thing, I see so many young faces. And the youth have their own language, and which is, they may speak the same English, but they may not speak in the same terms. For example, when my daughters were growing up, oftentimes they will use the word hate for something they dislike. I hate this, or I hate this food. And I will tell them there is no word stronger than hate. So if you want to what they really mean is they dislike it. But the youth culture tells them, well, to say that I don't like it, you have to say I hate it. And hate is in a literal terms is a very strong word to use, but it's very common in the youth language. So, and in their mind, it doesn't have the same degrees of meaning as it is for someone who was born over 60 years ago. So I think that's also another thing that we need to keep in mind. But I want to give you a chance to describe in one or two words what do you mean by character, and what do you expect to hear when you look at the topic of building as a model for building character. So is that something that's possible? Huh? Not into it? Not into words?
For character.
Okay, if you don't have something in the beginning, then what I'll do is I'll try to, instead of doing it one long presentation, I will try to break it. And when you see I'm taking a breath, feel free to raise your hands and say if you don't get what I'm trying to say. Although I think today's presentation should be easy, because mostly what I have done is compiled a catalog of examples from the life of Prophet ﷺ as to how he dealt with people. Many of them you probably may already be familiar if you have read books of Sirah, but I'm trying to pick and bring them into a very particular thought process. And so in that context, I think you may understand it slightly differently. Character is the central issue for human salvation and success. Both here in this world and absolutely in the next world. Our individual and our collective well-being, peace, tranquility, everything depends on character. The issue of character arises only for man and no other creation, apart from maybe jinns about whom we don't know anything, so I'm just going to put that aside. You don't talk about the character for animals, for inanimate objects, for the rest of the creation that Allah has created around us. Because none of them have that freedom that we have. Although Allah created us in the best form and shape, best of the character. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. He also gave man ability to go away from it, to not be on that character. And so he says, ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. And when he deviates from that, he becomes the lowliest of the low in Allah's creation. And the question of character is nothing more than for man to understand his place in this world. For man to understand why he is here. For man to understand who he belongs to. For man to understand what behavior will give me success and what behavior will be a loss for me. So the essence of all hidayah, the guidance, the word that we use, whether revealed or not, whether it's a philosopher 5,000 years ago saying something, or people of intellect and wisdom trying to tell you something today, it's all linked with man's character. All knowledge is linked with that. Knowledge is about how to be successful. as person, as society, as people. But what revealed wisdom distincts itself by is that the ultimate goal, the ultimate vision, the ultimate purpose has to be not this world, but the next world. Because kullu man alayha fan. Everything that is here is going to come to an end. And everything we have can come to an end any moment of our life. We can estimate how long. We can develop statistics. A person of such and such nature has this life expectancy. But there are no guarantees. And without that concept of something beyond this life, any talk of character becomes absolutely meaningless. It loses its bone and is unable to stand. There is no force behind it. If I can take someone's money and grab it and run away, what is there to prevent me from it? If the person can't come after me, if I have the ability to run away, and I have the ability to gain some enjoyment through that possession that I grabbed for someone else. Humanists and humanism will talk about doing good for the sake of good. But believe me, it has absolutely no bone. And the number one source for all the corruption and facade on this earth is this one central issue of character. And so the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us, وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ. Don't spread around in the world, causing facade and corruption on the earth. When we talk about character, it only makes sense in a collective sense. The issue of character does not arise if you are alone and if you are not dealing with any other human being. So the question of character is always set in a collective society, world perspective. Without it, it doesn't mean much. All the traits that you can think of, that if a person has, he will be a good person, recognized as good person. They all deal with the others. Even personal qualities of humbleness and humility is theirs, so that you take utmost care that you don't hurt another person. that you save yourself from aggressing upon another person. That is the reason why we are told those qualities. And if you want to be even extra careful, you will understand when Prophet ﷺ said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. That none of you can truly be believers. And if you reflect on the life of Prophet ﷺ and combine all his sayings and narrations, you will find he will never reject another person's iman. He accepted everyone the way he is. And to whatever extent he is willing to submit, he will take him and say, you belong to me. But there are very few occasions in which he used the word لا يؤمن أحدكم. And you can go back to encyclopedias of hadith and combine all of those ahadith, and you search for the word la yu'minu or laysa minni, he's not from me, you will find they all deal in the social context, in persons dealing with other people. And character is not something that can be forced upon people. You cannot enforce it in a way that you can bind and arrest someone or put him into some confined space and then say, this is what you must be, this is what you should be. A person's character does not come about through any process of compulsion, of force, of someone putting limits to your actions. But humans need to be shown, to be persuaded, to be convinced, and can never be forced. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who created us, says, لَوْ يَشَاءُ اللَّهُ لَهَدَى النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. If he had so willed and desired, he could have made all of you rightly guided. So the basic nature of our creation is that we must accept that voluntarily and not through any compulsion, any force. We cannot apply that compulsion and force on others, and we cannot apply any compulsion and force to ourselves. Any questions so far? Okay. I think my talk is on this topic, so I think let me go through it. I think it will become clear what track I'm taking. And if it's still not clear, please raise it again. I think you want to create a distinction between aqaid and iman and the teaching of the social conduct. Let's deal with that towards the end, inshallah.
Just something else that was bothering me a little bit. How do you reconcile? You talked about character being really, poor if you believe the hereafter. How do you reconcile, for instance, atheists and so on, who do good and whose characters seem to be very solid? These people don't believe in God. And then counter to that, we have people who are supposed to believe in Allah, and their character is, wanted. Even some of our leaders, some people we look up to.
Yes, so that is exactly the issue for us today. And being atheist doesn't mean a person cannot be of good character. But it means that how much he can suffer for the sake of his character. It's easy to be a nice person when the environment allows you to be. But it's very difficult to be a nice person when the environment does not allow to be. A very kind and soft-hearted person, if someone speaks to him in anger, he can bear it for up to a certain level, and ultimately he will lose it. And so the kind of strength and bone that I'm talking about that must be there, where without which the humanity as a whole will not be able to stay on that, is the way in which the Prophet Muhammad's messengers came, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, last messenger, and connecting it with the man's accountability, that you are not doing it for the just being good, but you are doing it for the sake of something much more valuable, much more bigger beyond this world. Without which, it's going to lose all of that. I'll tell you, if you read the Buddhist ideology, they are, if you stand in any gathering and ask a question, the most pacifist religion of all, in terms of ideology, where they don't even believe that an ant or an insect can be hurt. If you look at their history and our current events, whatever is going on, how that breaks down. It's not the first time in history. In Japanese ancient wars, and you look at the violence that was there, you'll be surprised. But today, the whole Western world thinks that's the most pacifist of all. But they're unable to keep on that. So the Prophet ﷺ and messengers gave us a way to develop those characters as something needed. Now, the traits of character are universally recognized. It's not something that is unique to Islam or Muslims or Quran. To be truthful, not to steal, not to hurt other people, to be honest in your dealings and business, to be just. What is character? These qualities. Tell me any faith, any ideology that does not hold these values to be their values. They all do. But can it withstand the tests of life? That is the question. And that is where, if I come to my second part, in which we find Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a society that was compared to in terms of cultureness, they were far behind compared to the rest of the world. They had observed through their travels the Persian Empire and the Roman Empire and the glitter and the etiquettes and everything, all these niceties that societies develop as a result of development of culture. They had none of that. They were Bedouins, happy with their way of life, harsh in their appearance and in their treatment, straight talking. They will not care what results happen. They will just say what they have to say. Let the other person think and decide how he wants to deal with it. Not very resourceful. Cultures and civilizations are built on heritage, on poetry, on literature, on all these activities. None of that was in that corner, which was in the center of the world, actually, geographically. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam took those persons, transformed them in a matter of years that can be counted on fingers. And that's the most amazing part of his transformation that occurred. I find it so offensive. Sometimes I hear, and I've heard in mosque, and I've heard in conversations, a book that a lot of Muslims like very much, and written by a person named Michael Hart, about 100 most influential persons in the history. And he put Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the first. As a result of that, that book has been translated into all Muslim-speaking languages and other languages. I think it's been translated into over dozens of languages. I really find it very offensive for someone to take Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and put him in line with these cheap, characterless people and say he's the first. Thousands of people came and clung to him like a magnet, old and young, rich and poor, people of high and noble status and people of low status, men and women took up his mission, willing to give their life at moment's notice. How did it come about? It was not just the logic of his message, what he expounded in terms of your beliefs and faith and tenets and recitation of the ayat. But even Quran points it was because of his character. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. You are on the highest of the pedal in character. And Quran even reminds Prophet ﷺ that it is because the kind of person you are that people are all clung around you. If you were harsh, they would have dispersed and gone from you. Even with your truth. And it was power of that character that flowed into people around him. And that character that continues to flow generations after generation to successive people who are transformed by the same. There are over 1.6 billion people on this earth today. Who have never seen him. There is no picture of him, there is no statue of him. There are no monuments dedicated to him. Yet he is alive. He is living in the lives of these people. None of us are or even come close to what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. But if each one of us is 1.6 billionth what Prophet was, we combined together will be a picture of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And how Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam achieved that remarkable achievement, unparalleled in the history. Someone can change people for temporary times. One can rile up people to take part in a particular expedition, a particular project, a particular aspect. Someone can build a civilization that can last a few decades and then come crumbling down. This sustained effect of 1400 years continues to reach us. How did he do that? As I said, the issue of character does not arise unless you take the context of people. Without people, there's no meaning to it. And if you are talking about leadership, all these other skills that you learn are important, that will enable you, help you in terms of your skills in communication, and skills in managing your life, skills in being able to deal with people. But none will come close to the success what Prophet achieved unless we also have them. Prophet had all those skills too. He is the originator of those skills. And so one remarkable incident from the life of Prophet, of how he used to teach people, is an incident where a Bedouin comes, not very cultured, not having much etiquette, while Prophet ﷺ is sitting in a gathering amongst people. And people used to come and ask him for things, for help, for money. And he comes and asks Prophet ﷺ that he needs help. Prophet ﷺ gave him whatever he had at that point. He used to empty his treasures by the end of the day. Everything is gone by the end of the day. That was a remarkable feature of it. In fact, one old woman was sitting, this is from a different, I'm just going on a tangent, but it's a very short reference. An old woman who saw Prophet ﷺ while he was traveling and he made a camp someplace. And similarly, people were coming and asking, he was giving whatever he could, whatever he can give away. And that woman said that he must be prophet, because he is giving like he has no fear of being poor. So this Bedouin comes and asks Prophet, and Prophet gives him whatever he has, but he's not satisfied. He thinks it's not enough, it's not much he has given him. And so he starts to abuse him. Oh, your family is not noble, you are from very bad family, your people are not good, you are not kind, you are not charitable, and all kinds of things. And the companions gathered around him, of course, became upset as to what kind of behavior is this. And Prophet ﷺ said, leave him. And he tells that Bedouin, I don't have any more today, but if you come back tomorrow, I'll give you more. So he goes away and he comes back next day. And next day, instead of in public, when he comes, Prophet takes him to his hujra and gives him everything. And he asks him, are you satisfied today? And he says, yes, O Messenger of Allah. You are from a very noble family. You are very kind-hearted. You are very charitable and good person. So he says to that Bedouin that, you know what you did yesterday upset my companions. Would you come out with me and say the same things in front of them again? He said, yes, of course. He goes out and he repeats the praise of Prophet in front of the people. And so Prophet said, you saw this person was upset yesterday, but today he has something different to say. And then he said, my example and the example of people is like the person who is in desert with all his provision, and the camel runs away and is lost. And he's crying, I have lost everything. People find me my camel. All my provision is on that camel. And so people go and search for that camel. And ultimately they find camel somewhere sitting down. And so they try to make it rise and move to bring him back to the person. And the camel won't move. And so ultimately they pick up sticks and they start beating it. Get up. Go. And the camel will still not move. And then that person finally arrives here. And he says, he sees people beating that camel. And he says, go away, leave it to me, leave it to me. Don't do that. I know my camel. And he starts to hug it, camel, comfort it, console it until it rises, and he rides it, camel, and goes away. So the Prophet gave that example. I think it carries one of the greatest wisdoms of how to deal with people. So often you are in a masjid, and in modern times, every masjid has this notice: please turn off your cell phones. Some imams will announce before every prayer, please remember to turn off your cell phones. But still, we are used to someone's phone ringing while we are praying. It happens. It happens when people are sitting, it happens when people are praying. I'm giving a very small example. And if you observe the masjid, you will see people turning with angry eyes. Who is this person? How dare he forgot to turn off his cell phone? And then, depending, an imam may stand and give a short khatira as to how essential it is to connect with Allah while you are praying, and how much it disturbs that if your cell phone is turned on and it rings bells, and sometimes it plays music. Do you think the Prophet's behavior would have been like that, based on what you just listened? In those days, the masjids had bare grounds. I mean, just like a earth ground you see outside. The only difference was some boundaries were built through a wall. Another Bedouin comes and starts to urinate in the masjid. Again, people are upset. And they are about to go and grab him and stop him from doing that. How dare! Prophet said, no, leave him. Let him finish first. And then he calls that Bedouin and tells him, this is house of Allah. These things don't happen here, so be careful. Don't do it again. And then he asks his companions, take a pail of water and flow over it. Not that he should go and clean himself, but ask his companions go and pour water over it. So, his wisdom in teaching, in understanding people, understanding their psychology, understanding their circumstances, and never ever leaving kindness, giving people room as to how and when they want to come further ahead in what he was calling everyone to. And he did not only teach that Bedouin when he asked for mal and he abused him, and the companions were carrying a bad feeling against that person because he abused the Prophet, the one the most loved by them. He tells that Bedouin, go out and repeat my praise before my companions, so that their hurt feelings may also be removed. So this, you can write thousands of pages of psychology books. You can study human behavior. You can study all aspects of predicting human behavior. But none will come close to the simple ways in which Prophet ﷺ understood and conveyed to us how he understood. Not something easy to do humanly. That is why none of us has ever achieved the success at the level that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ achieved. But to whatever degree we desire success, there is no path outside of it. And if you reflect on the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I will continue. If you have any questions, you can or comment, you can raise your hand, and I'm moving to a different section right now. He dealt with two kinds of people in his life. Those who believed in him, those who were with him, and those who opposed him. And obviously in both cases there are varying degrees of people. And he was influential in both groups. It's easy to be influential and recognized and known in people who agree with you, who are like you, but it's very hard to be known and recognized among people with whom you disagree. And so if I want to catalog some of the basic characteristics in how he dealt with people, the qualities that we must possess that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam possessed in dealing with all those people, the first and the foremost quality is his rahmah, his kindness. We have heard and recite tons of time where Quran says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, that he did not send you except as a mercy to the whole mankind, not to a particular group of people, but to the whole mankind. But the more amazing verse, if I reflect on it, is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes him by saying, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ. A messenger has come to you from amongst you. He's from you, from within you. Azizun alayhi ma anittum. When you suffer, when you face difficulties, it is hard upon him. Harisun alaykum. He is greedy for you. Bil mu'minina ra'ufur rahim. Did you see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said? Read the whole Quran, you will find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ascribes the quality of Ra'ufur Rahim to himself, that he is Ra'ufur Rahim. But he takes the Prophet, he applies that quality to him. So regardless of situation, regardless of circumstances, he dealt with people with kindness, under all circumstances. He's not known to become angry upon people. Oftentimes, human response when you see something disagreeable, whether in our children, in people around us, the first thing that comes out is our anger. The second quality is he valued every single one of them. None of them was any lesser value than anyone else, and gave importance to him. And there are so many, in this short time I can't repeat every aspect of that, him valuing people. But he would mingle with people in such a way that a stranger will come to masjid in a gathering in which Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sitting, and he will ask, "Who among you is Muhammad?" Such equality in his relation with people. An old Bedouin woman used to sweep the masjid in Medina every single day. And one day she's not there. She's not very educated, she's not very part of the dars and teachings and everything else. She's just living her own life. She used to come and sweep the floor and go away, not having to deal with anyone, anything. I said, "Where is she? I don't see her today." They said, "Oh, she died yesterday. And we prayed janazah over her and we buried her." And the Prophet said, "Why didn't you tell me? I would have done salat on her." And so when Quran commands Prophet, وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ, lower your wings over people. And it is through that process that he was able to take people, give them everyone who would come, and he will say salam first, and he will return to him as if this is the most important person that has just entered the room, regardless of who he is. The third thing is his interest in people. is constantly watching over them, constantly taking account of them, what they are doing. He will sit in gatherings, ask, how are things going? What's happening? What did you do? And if he had some advice, well, this is not right, or this is not how it should have been done, or this is what can be better. He constantly do that. And so his interest in people, interest in their well-being, interest in how they are living, and through that, obviously, the teaching comes. Not in the shape of a lecture, not in the shape of an instruction given, but in the shape of being involved with that person. Never, ever humiliated anyone for his mistakes. Put him down. That how can you do something like this? Doesn't mean he didn't use punishment where it was necessary, not the kind of punishments where a person is hurt or tortured, but punishment in the sense that a person will come and he has done something so upsetting, he will say, I'm not going to speak to you for next 3 days. And that was a great enough punishment for people who loved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And today in the society we talk about enforcement of behavior. We pass laws. Through those laws we want people to conform to certain behavior. There was no police force in Medina. There was no investigative division in Medina. There was no one going around and taking statistics and building trends as to where people are going wrong. He never refused to say salam to anyone. In fact, these days, from some people take up this position that you can only say assalamu alaikum to believers and non-believers don't deserve assalamu alaikum. This is a very known stand that people take. And some people take out of it by saying, oh, same to you, or this or that, or peace be to you, and stuff like that. I mean, I deal with interfaith gatherings and interfaith work in Chicago, and I come across those things constantly. That by law or by fiqh, you are restricted, that you cannot say salam to one who is not Muslim or believer. First of all, being a known believer in legal terms is not same as being accepted as believer before the eyes of Allah. We all know that, right? Because the fiqhi term of a believer is different. In this world, a person's iman is judged by his profession, not by any legal process. A person can become Muslim by his own confession. He doesn't need to go through any ritual, any routine, anything to become a Muslim. I mean, people take those who convert into masjid and stand them before and tell them to utter shahada in front of people, but that's a ritual that we have established, but it's not something that is required or needed. But read Quran and you will find that Jews used to come and say Assalamu alaikum to people. And then some of them will twist the word, and instead of saying Assalamu alaikum, they will say Assamu alaikum. Like they will take out the L part from the in between, just so that people may not know what they are saying, but they are actually saying that he may be hurt, that a poison may be upon him. And even Aisha radiallahu anha, who heard that, she went back to the Hujra and was very upset and was about to say some bad words about them. And the Prophet ﷺ said, stop. He said, didn't you hear what I said to them? I said, wa alaikum. And that was it. It may return on you. But what that conveys to us, that these Jews and Christians will come and say Assalamu alaikum to him, and he will respond by wa alaikum assalam, and it's recorded in Quran. And so he did not alienate people based on you belong to this camp, you belong to this camp, you belong to this camp. Treated everyone equally. The fourth quality is his dealing with people based on their capabilities. One thing and same thing does not work on everyone. And there are many examples of that from the life of Prophet ﷺ. It confuses us sometimes. A Bedouin comes and asks Prophet ﷺ, what is the minimum I need to do? And the Prophet tells him 5 daily prayers, fasting, zakat, hajj, and be truthful in your life. And he stands up and leaves and says, by God, I will not add anything to it. And the Prophet ﷺ, if someone wants to see a person of paradise, look at that person. At the same time, in the Battle of Tabuk, recognized believers, not out of rebellion, not out of disagreement, but out of their laziness, were unable to take part in the expedition. They were left behind. And Prophet Muhammad came back. And he was accepting people's excuses as behavior. He will never, even if he knows the person is making something up, he will not tell him that you are making it up. So the hypocrites and the munafiqeen, they will all come and offer excuses for their behavior, say, this is why I couldn't go. I had this engagement, my business was in this problem, my home needed myself to be there. And so a lot of people from Medina didn't go. The Prophet said, okay, fine. You also go. But these 3 persons, because he expected a lot more from them than he expected from the other people. And he taught him a lesson. First refused to speak to him, then asked that his family should not speak to him, then he asked that he leave his home, and all that process they went through, but still with kindness. Because the one person who has in detail narrated his own story, and if you have time, go back and read that. It's a very long narration. Ka'b bin Malik, radiallahu anh. His feelings, what he was feeling, what he was going through. And he describes that I will go to masjid and I will say salam and Prophet will not reply to me. And he will turn his face away from me. And he will say, I will pray, and then I will steal my eyes and I will try to see what is he doing. And I will see him, he's looking at me. So his love and kindness that people felt. And in dealing with people based on their capacities and their capabilities, understanding who is where in his journey, understanding where a person stands in his journey to Iman, in his journey to this place where Prophet is inviting everyone. And he dealt with them in that manner, in that way. Soft-hearted always. Softness never ever left him. And never would, even if someone's behavior is something he is finding annoying, he will not let it be known. He will smile and accept that. To the extent that one of the walimas, people were invited to eat and they stayed for long, not leave. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a revelation that what you were doing was hurtful. Inna dhalikum kana yuzin nabi fayastahi minkum. That he felt shy to tell you, but it wasn't something that he liked. And until Quran revealed, people did not recognize that their behavior was annoying to him. The munafiqeen will come and will say about him, and they will say, وَمِنْهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ النَّبِيَّ وَيَقُولُونَ هُوَ أُذُنٌ. That they heard the Prophet and that they say he's all ears. He listens to everyone all the time. He doesn't exclude anyone. I mean, these people are all filling his ears with their ideas and their talks, and he's listening to everyone. He needs to be selective. He needs to be careful. And the Quran says, قُلْ أُذُنُ خَيْرٍ لَكُمْ. That is good for you. That is better for you. His forgiveness reached to the degree and level where a revelation had to come and tell him, Afallahu anka lima zinta lahum. Allah is saying that may Allah forgive you. Why did you give them permission when they didn't even deserve punishment? And from the same battle of Tabuk, while he was returning, the leader of the hypocrites, Abdullah ibn Ubay, he felt he was going to be the king of the Medina, and his hopes were vanished by the arrival of Prophet. So he carried that grudge throughout his life. And he riled people up around him and said, today the people of respect will throw away these people of no value from the city today. They will not be allowed to enter back into the city. At that moment, politically, society-wise, It was an absolutely great, hurtful event for the Muslim community. A rebellion raising its head in a powerful way. And when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ returned, so happens that his own son draws out his sword and tells his father, I will see who enters the city today. This Abdullah ibn Ubay, when he died, his son came to Prophet and asked him to lead his janazah and to give his shirt to him so that this person can be buried in Prophet's shirt. And so Prophet gave him his shirt. And he buried him in that shirt. But as he was about to go out, he received the revelation, وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْكُمْ. Don't ever offer prayer on them, because they were known to Prophet ﷺ. And he said, even if you ask forgiveness for them 1,000 times, Allah is not going to forgive them. And even after receiving this revelation, he said, if I had known that Allah will forgive him if I ask forgiveness more than 1,000 times, I will ask Allah to forgive him. So this level of connection and genuine love for not just who loved him, but those who opposed him, those who were enemy to him all their lives. And so all these incidents convey to us a process through which Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was able to transform that society and build it and make it into a civilization that continues to have its influence to this day. Islam may have a bad name today in the media, in the circles of power, in the prevalent thinking of people around us. But it is Islam that every person is concerned with. That universities, academics, politicians, whether they oppose or they want to study or they want to deal with it or they want to understand how to deal with it, everywhere, constantly, its relevance never goes away. Civilizations rise and fall. And even though we say Islam has a track record, but Islamic civilizations also rose and fell. But every time they fell from the ashes, new people stood up. When Mongols came and destroyed the major Islamic civilization center, burned books, libraries, killed people, a civilization exists on the basis of its heritage and its culture. That's what the world tells you. It lost all of that. but it's ideas. That those Mongols who took women as slaves with them to the Kazakhstan, Byzantine, all these areas. And those women converted those barbaric, triumphant rulers, and the Islamic civilization rose again in the lands of Bukhara. And so, this hidayah is for all time to come until the end of this world. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we are the ones who revealed it and we are the ones who are going to protect it, our mind instantly goes to the book Quran. But today we are sure that we pray like the Prophet ﷺ prayed, that we fast like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ fasted, that we do Hajj like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did Hajj, that our etiquettes of eating, our etiquettes of washing our bodies, our etiquettes of our social norms and behaviors all mimic Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if we truly want to become relevant in this world, we must own the world. Not just own your own self or your own community. We must come out of our islands and our shells and transform people. Transform people not through YouTube presentations. Transform people not through printing thousands and thousands of books and handing them over to people. Transform people the way the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam transformed, by changing them, changing their inner person, changing their character. We have no model but that if we want to succeed in this world. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.